Welcome to the Whole Metaverse, a New York University School of Professional Studies podcast exploring the ever-expanding metaverse and Web3 landscape. Each episode, we'll talk to the pioneers, influencers, and innovators leading the way. If you want to understand and better navigate this burgeoning space, you're in the right place.
Hello, welcome to the podcast, The Whole Metaverse at NYU, the podcast about Metaverse and blockchain. Dr. Elizabeth Haas and myself, Pierre Gervois, are the co-hosts. And today, we're having Hrish Lotlikar, the CEO of Super World. A super world is a virtual world augmented reality metaverse platform. The concept of this metaverse is to have a layer of virtual reality on top of the real world map. So the very concept of super world is not as, for example, Decentraland, which is recreating an entirely new universe. It's to create a layer of metaverse and using blockchain on top of the existing real world to subdivide it into plots that you can acquire as NFTs. And the proposition of Super World is to empower the owners of these plots of virtual land to conduct business or to sell or showcase art or to interact with other people using this layer of augmented reality. So one of the limitations of this project is that anybody, any new company in the future could recreate another layer of virtual reality. So basically you could have multiple owners of the real world in virtual reality. So that's one of the limitations of this project. But this project has a lot of really great applications. Liz, what do you think about this project?
Well, my own sense was, a big piece of innovation is challenging assumptions. And he really talks about the assumption of what the creator can do by themselves and giving power to the creator in this super world. It's a superpower, the ability to use these new technologies, blockchain, immersive, AI, to give each of us greater power. So in many ways, that mission is a phenomenal mission. Whether they can contain a competitive advantage, I'm not sure. But understanding it and understanding how it works is super insightful. And it's just a lot of fun to listen to him and feel his energy.
Yes, and I think there are many applications for cities, for public policies, for city management, and in particular for travel and tourism. Travel and tourism is one of the pillars of NYU SPS, and I think there's a lot of research to be done to see how Super World can be used to promote territories and destinations. So there are a lot of really great ideas. So now let's listen to our guest, Hrish Lotlikar. Hrish Lotlikar, thank you very much for being on the Whole Metaverse NYU podcast, the podcast of New York University about the metaverse and the blockchain. Dr. Elizabeth Haas and myself, Pierre Gervois, were the co-host of the podcast, and we're very happy to have you in the podcast. You're the CEO of Super World, a virtual world in augmented reality where we can acquire plots of virtual real estate. There's also the possibility to create and to collect NFTs as artwork. So first of all, when did you become interested in your personal life and in your career by the metaverse and all these new concepts? When did it happen?
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm a big fan of NYU and spent a lot of time living in New York City, so I miss it. Can't wait to be back on campus. Was just with one of your famous professors, Nouriel Roubini, last week. So love what you guys are doing. And thanks for having me on. What's funny is that I started off in the world of real estate in New York, working at UBS and HSBC investment banks on Wall Street. And I didn't know at the time when I was working in traditional real estate finance and investment banking that I would one day, help create the category of virtual real estate. But the origins of real estate started then. Previous to Superworld, I started a company called Rogue Initiative Studios, which is a film, television, gaming, and virtual reality studio in Hollywood. My co-founder had produced Call of Duty, Modern Warfare series, and Ghosts, and my production partner there is Michael Bay, the action director. And at Rogue Initiative, we're focused on building new franchises from the ground up that go across feature film, television, gaming, virtual reality, all the way to amusement park rides, toys. And the idea was that, and it still is that, as we all know, that a lot of this content, whether you're talking about a linear feature film or you're talking about an interactive game or an immersive piece of content, VR, AR, all of these pieces of content are created in gaming engines, Unity and Unreal. And what happened was, I had come from this AR, VR mindset, having started Rogue Initiative. Rogue is backed by many of the top AR, VR venture capital funds in Silicon Valley and globally. And what happened was about 6 years ago, Pokemon Go came out, right? You had all these people running around the world looking for Pokemon. And at that point, I got together with my co-founder, Max, and we thought, what if we could empower anyone to really build anything anywhere? If it wasn't Pokemon, what if it was about, history or travel or your personal photos, your personal business, whatever it is, right? How could we empower anyone to build a world? And that was kind of the impetus and the progenitor of starting Superworld.
Can I jump back? When did you start Rogue?
2015.
So you were very early in that world.
Yeah. We started Rogue Initiative soon after Facebook had acquired Oculus, and that was the excitement around the VR space that had transpired due to the M&A activity that had occurred around that time, and all the development that was going on in that space, and the amount of investment that Meta had started putting into VR content and hardware.
What prompted you to move from UBS or the real estate world to that world? What was it that caught you here?
I started off in investment banking and moved into venture capital. So I've always had a very strong interest in creation and being able to kind of take ideas and get them out there and help solve problems. And so I ended up moving into venture capital in New York. Had an idea back about 13 years ago, which was, wouldn't it be cool to go somewhere in the emerging markets and start a venture capital fund? That took me over to Eastern Europe. So I traveled all around. I was in Ukraine, Russia, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Moldova in 2009. Ended up taking me about a year and a half back then and starting a venture capital fund backed by a big investor named Viktor Pinchuk in Ukraine. It got involved in another one and helped kind of grow that one. It was called Tech Minsk in Belarus. And a company called Masquerade, MSQRD, got purchased by Facebook, Meta, and that got me my first exposure to augmented reality. Just that company went through our accelerator, Tech Minsk, and so it kind of had first exposure there. And again, I think the answer to your question is I've always been entrepreneurial by nature, and really kind of wanted to put the pieces together from all of these different experiences, and that's kind of what got me to jump into the founder side of the table.
Let's talk about content. Content is something very important in every metaverse, because when people go into a metaverse, they want to see some compelling, interesting, exciting content. What is the strategy of Superworld to convince owners of these virtual plots of land to create content, to make it interesting for other people to see, check out, and want to stay in Superworld?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And, I think that the way that we think about this is, one, on a very high level, we're moving into this, I would say, technological transformation where the democratization of content creation is here, whether you're using generative AI whether you're using tools, like Canva or Figma, whether you're using, tools on the video creation side or the 3D creation side. Now every phone comes with LiDAR and you can scan any environment and create a 3D object, right? These tools are in our hands. And so, number one, I think we're seeing a wave of technology and tools that is democratizing the ability for anyone to create high quality content. Number one. Number two, I think we're seeing, in the great resignation of the last few years, and definitely in the growth of the creator economy. And as you look at, blockchain and the utilization of technologies in Web3 like NFTs, you're looking at the opportunity for these content creators to go direct to their customers. And so you can build a very strong, business and, again, engage with your customers with much greater profit margins by utilizing Web3 technology and engaging your community and being able to use the tools that I mentioned before to create that type of content. Now, specifically with Superworld, I think the beauty of what we're seeing is, a lot of people, as they think about these concepts, whether it's AR, VR, immersive tech, Web3, AI, the metaverse, a lot of the mainstream kind of crowd out there has a big question mark in their head. How do I get into this? What does this mean for me? I don't want to miss the boat. How do I jump in early if you're a user or brand, right? But what we're seeing in Superworld is that when they come to Superworld, they don't maybe understand all of the technologies yet, but they know where they live. They know where they have a business. They know where they go to, school or university. They know where they're spending time on vacation. They have these special places in the world. And so if I ask you, where did you buy virtual real estate in Superworld? You're going to name those places. You're going to tell me a very personal story about why these places are important to you. And number three, you're going to tell me the what. What is it that you have in your mind that you want to create in those locations, right? And that's the really pivotal part here for us, is what we're doing is we're introducing these technologies that I mentioned earlier into the platform. So you, as a real estate owner, because you've bought these places in the world, whether it's NYU campus in Manhattan or your favorite, island getaway across the other side of the world that maybe you can't own in the physical world, but you can own that virtual real estate occupying that area. And now you have that connection to that place. And I'm going to give you the tools to create, discover, and monetize anything there in that location. And as an owner of that location, you're a stakeholder there, which means that you don't only benefit from what you're creating, you activate monetization potential from digital commerce, e-commerce, advertising, gaming, DeFi, from all of the other activity that can take place there. And so the point is you're very incentivized. You have this creativity at your fingertips. And you're telling us very directly what it is you want to create. And so we're kind of putting together this perfect storm of technologies and incentives and interest to build a world together. And again, our mission is to enhance the real world and to enhance people's real lives. And so I think with all of those things together, that's kind of the secret sauce for how we envision that we can help our creators, our landowners, and even the content consumers that come in to see these amazing content experiences. That's our goal.
There's definitions that are all over the world. And as I'm listening to you, you're avoiding overusing any word, but more describing what you're doing. Would you describe it as the metaverse, as Web3, as something else? And what is your definition of this? Is it simply enhancing the experience? What is it?
I think that's a very, very awesome point is, I think we get lost in all of these terms, whether it's NFTs or Web3 or AR, VR, MR, XR, WebGL, all of these terms that kind of describe this immersive experiences that we're, creating. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is omnipresence for a brand or a user. Maybe you're on Facebook, maybe you're on TikTok, maybe you're on Instagram, and people generally understand social media and the power of that. But I think what we're describing is how can you leverage these other technologies, and you don't have to worry about the names per se, but think about the attributes of those technologies. As I mentioned earlier, the power of a creator on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or Roblox or Fortnite for that matter, versus a power of that same creator to utilize, let's say, Web3 NFT technology to go direct without a centralized party to create content and monetize and engage their community is transformative for that creator, especially when you look at the margins they're able to make and how they can maximize even a smaller community in ways that can't be done when you have a third party involved in that transaction. So going direct is a very big benefit.
So is what you're saying kind of, if there is a magic here, it's that power of eliminating the middleman, of going direct, of the democratization that let creators go direct. And whether it's VR, XR, blockchain, or anything else, that's what it's about. That's what Superworld is about.
That is one aspect of our promise to enable you to build a world and to own that world. Right. Number two, I think it's also the ability to utilize, again, without going into VR, AR, MR, XR, immersive technology that allows me to have the ability to create content that's just much more compelling, engaging, that on a very empirical basis provides greater conversion, whether it's I'm selling an e-commerce product or I'm getting someone to sign up for a coaching class. If you can create something that's much more immersive, you're going to get much more greater engagement with your customers. And so the VR, AR, MR, XR, the immersive tech part of that, again, gives brands and users a much more powerful way of interacting. And then I think finally, AI, as we've come to see with ChatGPT and other technologies that are coming to fore, is going to be so powerful because it enables us to again create content and experiences that are so much quicker and efficient to create, as well as might even, I dare to say, be better in some cases than what people can create on their own. So with the aid of AI, I think a creative genius becomes a creative super genius. And so that's pretty exciting. But then also, I think the part of that AI is not only the creation aspect of it, but it's also the discovery. In Superworld, we're in real world locations, right? So you're putting these content in real world locations. How can I, if I'm walking down the street in Manhattan and you've created an amazing sculpture or you've created an NFT that helps me unlock a real world opportunity, how can I, again, know that exists? And that's where, in our case, AI could be very powerful because it aids in not only the creation, but the discovery aspect of that.
What about avatar integration? Have you worked with, for example, a Ready Player Me, so you can take your avatar and take a walk in the location?
Great question. And I don't know if you've seen our product roadmap or something, but so avatars are very important. I think identity is very important, right? And that aspect of the user experience is something that we're looking very closely at right now. And I think the way that we think about it is, again, just to be clear, Superworld, our differentiation in the space is Superworld is about enhancing your reality. We're about enhancing your physical life. We don't want to suck you into a virtual world. We want to keep you in the physical world, number one. Okay. And then again, our other broader mission is how can we bring these technologies to bear to actually enhance humanity? So when you buy virtual real estate, we plant trees in the real world. We're partnered with the World Bank. We're, in the Caribbean, we partnered and you do things in the Amazon jungle. But back to your question about avatars, the way we think about that is how can we bring those avatars in real world locations? How can we enable you to do something with an avatar that can enhance someone's physical life? So can we bring an augmented reality avatar, and can I, send you a message and put an avatar in your living room that tells you what I'm going to talk about today on the podcast, right?
That would be great. I would love to do that.
Exactly. And so those are the kinds of things we're thinking about, which is, there's a movie called Social Dilemma that came out a few years ago, and it's on Netflix, and it's all about how we're in these algorithmic bubbles. It's about, how kids are just plugged into Fortnite, and, kids and adults alike are, obsessed with making Instagram and TikTok posts, and, we're all looking at our phones all day. The idea that we're trying to, really focus on is how can I, and it's a fine line, but how can I keep you in the physical world? So as we think of avatars, I don't yet want you to, in a first kind of approach, want you to stay at home, create an avatar, and go to a virtual environment. I want you to go out there in a real world situation and interact with an avatar, with your avatar or another avatar, but be in the real world. And maybe that person can't be in the real world, but at least you are. That's my point, right?
I'd love to push you on the role cities need to play with the superpower. My head is all around the importance of cities building their constituents and their citizens into the world we're moving into and doing it in a way that makes it healthy. What's your sense on the role of cities here and how, in the ideal world, you'd like to work with cities?
I think the future of cities and our living habitats are so important just because it really shapes so much of our lives. And, over the past 10 to 15 to 20 years, I think we've seen how lives in cities have changed. And, there's been a big, migration and continuing to happen to cities, and cities are growing and growing in importance. I think that, as we plan and build cities, as we, think about projects like NEOM that's happening in Saudi Arabia, I'm going to be in Riyadh a couple of weeks speaking, doing the keynote at LEAP. There's lots of projects around the world that are reimagining these cities. And what we do and what we're working on, and we have some very big real estate partners in the commercial real estate space that I'll be able to announce soon, is what we want to do is be able to visualize those places, visualize those skylines before they get built, be able to become a stakeholder in those locations and in how those projects are being developed, be able to work with governments and citizenry to, again, help all of them work more closely together using these technologies. Now, I talked a lot about Web3 and how that engages a creator, but governments and large property developers and civilians that are involved in planning and public policy. There's so many stakeholders here. And I think that the power of Superworld to bring those stakeholders together to help reimagine and help develop and build these cities and bring these stakeholders together in ways that are transformative, that can help us, again, build cities in much more impactful ways, I think is a big goal of ours. And we're very much interested in already working with some of the bigger commercial real estate companies out there. And the beauty of what we've created is many of these commercial real estate companies and property developers, they understand the real estate in Superworld, what we're building on top of the real world. And so a lot of them come to us because they're like, hey, we just bought up our property in XYZ city. Now, what can we do? We have physical real estate that we're building or we've already built in this location. We want to add content there. We want to educate our customers. We want to sell more real estate. We want to market this stuff. We want to create digital twins. All of this stuff is part of our roadmap.
We're doing a lot of work with a number of cities who are quite interested in kind of sorting through all of this in our role of kind of bringing the parties together in conversation. So I'd love to figure out a way that we can be an unbiased linking mechanism, but also do it in a way that works for everyone here.
That'd be great. No, I would love to follow up on that. I think that, ultimately, the way we think about what we're building is it's a very open platform. And so we're very agnostic on the software side, on the hardware side. We're built on Apple, Google, very closely with Niantic, again, building with Meta. We want to make it as easy as possible to use the tools. And so having those conversations early for us is a great way for us to kind of imagine what we need to build and how we continue to grow our platform.
If you were giving us advice, NYU's collaborative, our mission is to bring views together and help push all of this towards a healthier world. What advice would you give to us? What's important for us to pay attention to?
Yeah, I think that, as a premier educational institution and as such a cultural centerpiece of New York City, which is one of the greatest cities in the world. And again, I live very globally, and NYU continues to lead the way in so many different areas. And you have a student population, an alumni population that I think is very impactful all over the world. As I mentioned, I was just with one of your famous professors last week, a dear friend of mine. I think that as we are continuing to move into this new era, whether it's technology or society over the last few years, we've seen so many changes. And again, with the AI and other things coming that are going to further kind of transform our lives. We've seen what ChatGPT does only in the past few months. It's only going to get better. I think, as an educational institution, as a bridge for so many people to get over into these new worlds that we're creating, I think it's very important for NYU to, again, continue to be collaborative, to be very open to technologies, to enable opportunities for students to jump into these technologies, to experiment. I'd love to do a stronger partnership with NYU, so that would be super interesting for us. I'd love to figure out how we can be a driver for some of those things, whether it's helping to get students onboarded into the metaverse, into Superworld, into these technologies, into helping us shape some of the ideas and products that we're working on. There's so many smart students that are coming into this space. And I think the beauty of this space is that there's so much unlimited potential when you add all these technologies together. And it really takes a lot of creativity. And so, again, opening that up to so many more people is, I think, a big, important part of the piece that NYU plays in the overall kind of movement of our society into the metaverse. So thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you. You're a wonderful ambassador for NYU, and we 100% agree with what you say.
And we will follow up and sort through how we can work together on some of this and help each other here.
I appreciate that. No, we have two simple missions: enhance people's real lives and enhance humanity. And that's why it's called Superworld, right? And so, I think when I tell people that mission, people raise their hand and say, hey, how can I help? And, as you know, we have Bob Metcalfe involved, from Metcalfe's Law, creator of Ethernet, Stephen Wolfram, we have like many of the top tech and societal luminaries involved in our mission. So I'd love to have and partner with you guys. And thank you.
Awesome. Hrish Lotlikar, CEO of Superworld. Thank you so much. And I wish you a lot of success in your personal life and your professional life with Superworld. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pierre and Liz.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for listening to The Whole Metaverse, a podcast from the New York University School of Professional Studies Metaverse Collaborative. The Whole Metaverse is produced by Make More Media. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe for more content. For more information about the NYU Metaverse Collaborative, please head to www.sps.nyu.edu.